Hello everyone, welcome back to the Angular15 project. In this video, we will discuss about the project architecture, and apart from this, we will see what tools are required to create a Angular15 project. So before proceeding with this video, I recommend you please watch my previous video. We have seen the introduction about the project, and we have seen like what we are going to implement and what technology we should know, like basic idea on what technology we require. So let's discuss like what is the tools and prerequisite required before creating a Angular15 project. So these are the some tools which we require to create a project. And what is that? Like we should have Visual Studio 2019. If we want to have Visual Studio 2017, that is also fine, but I'm going to create this project with Visual Studio 2019. If you want to download this Visual Studio 2019, you can go to this URL and it will look a URL like this. Like when you will go to the particular URL, you can download from here as a Visual Studio 2019 as a community version or enterprise version. So enterprise version is basically a free trial and free download is this. So you can download the community version. Next is we needed Visual Studio Code, and this is required when we are going to implement the client-side UI basically. So we need this Visual Studio Code, and that code also, like this tool also, you can download from this link. And then we needed the Postman, and this is required to test our API. Like once we will create the API under this Visual Studio 2019, and for testing purpose we need this Postman. So you can download this Postman from this given URL. And apart from this, we need SQL Server 2014, and this database or SQL Server we needed where we will store our student data, so we can fetch the data using the APIs, and we will show the data into the Angular UI which we are going to implement. So these are the some tools and prerequisite which we required to create the Angular15 project. So let's discuss now what is the project architecture and how it will work. So here you can see we have some couple of the levels where we are going to design our Angular15 project. And here we can see like directly we are not going to create the SQL database or tables under this one. This SQL database and the tables which we are going to create using the entity framework code first approach. So we will create our entities into the ASP.NET Core. Basically in the Visual Studio 2019, we will create our entities, and using the console NuGet console package manager, we will create the database and the tables which we require. And whatever the logics which we are going to needed and the business object, we will write under the C#.NET language. And whenever we needed the API to communicate between the Angular and the logic, or we can say the database, we needed the APIs, and all those API we will write under this ASP.NET Core API, and all those things we will write inside the Visual Studio 2019. And then we needed the UI where we will show the login and the registration pages, and after login we will navigate to the specific page. All those communication or the like UI we will write inside the Angular 8, and those like TypeScript or the code we will write under this Visual Studio Code tool. So these are the tools which we require, and this is the will be the project architecture basically. And here like when we will communicate between the API and the UI, we will create the JWT authentication, and based on the authentication we will get the data, and according to that we will populate the student data based on the authentication. If user will not be authenticated, they will not navigate to the particular page. Based on the authentication, we will navigate to the specific page. That we will see once we will start working on the project. Next is like how and what all are the API we are going to implement in this project. So in this picture you can see like we are going to communicate using the API, and here we are looking like API we will create, and using the entity framework we will like create the database. So we will create the identity tables and student info tables. Inside the student info table we will fill all the student related data, and inside the identity table we will fill our like login and the registration data. And apart from this one, if we are going to assign any role to the student or the teachers, that we will implement inside the identity tables. So that is related to the database, and these table we will create using the entity framework code first approach. Now what all are the APIs required for us to populate the data under this Angular? So we needed like login API and registration API, and then get student basic info. And if we are going to do any CURD operation inside the student screen, then we need those API. Like CURD operation means like we can update, we can like delete the data, we can get the data, and we can insert the data. So those are the CURD operation basically, which we will do through the API. Now how this API will be taken? So inside the Angular, when we will design the screen, and respective screen will communicate to the respective API, and through that API it will go to the database and it will fetch the data, and through that API we will get the data inside the Angular UI. So in the Angular UI, what screen we are going to implement? So we need the login UI screen, and then we need the registration UI, then we need the home page. Like once the student will log in, it will navigate to the student page, and from here if student want to change their information, like any name he want to change or any information he want to change, then we will give a link over this home page and it will navigate to the student CURD operation UI. So the live things like what we are going to implement, we have seen in the previous video, like how it will work. In this we are looking the project architecture, like in the backend what basically we are doing. In the coming tutorial or the video, we will discuss about the like how we are going to implement and what step we will take to implement. Like first we have to design the UI or API or the database. So what we should do like first to implement, that we are going to see in the next video. So that's it for this video. Thank you.